Hi, my name is Daniel Baig.
And I'm Surya, and we're going to be teaching you Git.
Before we begin, let's go ahead and install VS Code. So after clicking the hyperlink, it's going to go ahead and open up your browser for code.visualstudios.com. If you're using Windows, you can go ahead and click the button, or if your option is not listed, you can go ahead and the button in the top right corner, and it'll show different operating systems: Windows, Linux, and Mac. Once installed, we will go ahead and continue on with the next part of the PowerPoint.
So Git is like a version control system, and you keep your files in a repository, which everybody calls as repo for short. And then you connect your repository with the GitHub server. GitHub server will be able to track the history of all your programs. So say at one point, like you want to check the history, or like one point it worked and now it doesn't, you can always go back. So it's good to see. There you can clearly commit your changes and see who did what.
So what is the difference between Git and GitHub, you may think? As previously stated, Git is just the version control system used to track changes in the source code. GitHub is a web-based platform that hosts Git and provides additional tools for collaboration.
So this is just an example of like what a file structure may look like. So you have a directory called Git, and then it points to your file system, and you have files such as main.rackgit, etc., etc. And all these files together is kept in the Git server, and you need all of these files for your program to run.
So your workflow, it just means you edit your project files directly. It means you can use any editor you wish, such as VS Code, Vim, Notepad, Notepad++, or other tools to edit, add, or delete project files. So activity 1, we're going to go ahead and create a repository. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and create a GitHub account. If you don't have one, just go ahead and click the hyperlink for the GitHub account, and it'll take you to the website to create one. Once you're in, go ahead and input your email address. Then once it verifies to see if there is no account linked to it, it's going to ask you to create a password. And then if it follows the guidelines for creating a password, then you will enter a username. And once it's ready, just hit confirm, and then we'll go ahead and hit the continue button. And you don't have to hit the check mark if you don't want to. Just hit continue, and then you're going to go ahead and verify your account by doing this CAPTCHA. Once done, it's going to go ahead and send you a code to your email address. Now that it's been verified, it will say that your GitHub account has been successfully verified and is ready to be logged into. So you're going to go ahead and just do your initial setup, which is going to be student. So I would suggest going to 5 to 10 students, since this is going to be for your software engineer course, and you will have about that many. So just go ahead and just select start a new project and connect with other developers. And if you want to do this on your own time, you can always just skip personalization. So the free option is what you normally get as a free user, but since you are a student, make sure to go ahead and take full advantage of the GitHub Student Developer Pack. If you want to go ahead and sign up for your GitHub Student Developer Pack right now, we're going to go ahead and do that. So go ahead and hit the hyperlink that page has to open up the GitHub Student Developer Pack. Once you are there, hit the sign up button. Once you are in this page, you can decide if you're a teacher, student, or you're the school. Since you are a student, you will hit student. If you scroll all the way down, it gives you the requirements to accept this developer pack for free. If you scroll down a bit more, it's going to go ahead and ask you what is the name of your school. Over here, you would put in the University of Texas at Dallas. And once done, it will ask you to put in your UTD email, which is going to be your net ID. Then it's going to ask you for your billing address, your billing information. After that, it may ask you to put in a two-factor authentication, which you can do through GitHub, and you're going to have to download GitHub's app that will connect to your GitHub so that you can go ahead and set up your two-factor authentication. Once done, it may ask you for additional verification, so have your UTD ID on you or any other form of verification on you so that they know you're currently enrolled in classes. Now, once you submit your application, it'll go ahead and put it into process, and it'll take about 2 to 3 business days before they get back to you to either say they rejected it because they weren't able to properly see the information, which then you just have to reapply, but with better pictures or screenshots, or if they give you the okay, you are all set for the student developer pack. So now that we have the most basic account set up, we're going to also go ahead and download the GitHub desktop application, which is going to be the second hyperlink on this slide. And you're just going to download GitHub desktop, install it, and it should automatically be linked up with your account. So we've run the executable of GitHub desktop, and it's going to go ahead through the installation process. Once you have it installed, this is what it's going to show initially. Okay, so when you first open up GitHub desktop, you're going to go ahead and be greeted by this screen. You're going to go ahead and for your first one, you're probably going to have to create a new repository on your local drive. Call it whatever you like. You can put whatever you want in the description. Local path, I would keep it the same. Make sure you initialize this repository with the README file and keep everything else the same. If you want to change your local path, you can choose wherever you would like it to be. I usually just keep it at the basic path that is done. I went ahead and put in the software engineering group 10 folder. For gitignore, we're going to leave that for the time being since we're going to create our own if you're using an API. Otherwise, you don't necessarily need it. And for license, there is none. You're going to go ahead and click create repository, and it's going to go ahead and create a repository locally in your machine for the time being. And for part 3, we already did install VSCode onto your machine, so it should automatically be there. So we already did activity 2 since this was a brand new account, created a new repository. Same thing with activity 3.
So a commit is like a version of your code, and what Git does is it keeps track of all your commits, which is all your history. And this is very important so that you can like look through and you'll have a history from the very beginning till now. You'll have a history of all the previous versions of your code, and if you wanted to, you can always revert back to a previous version if need be. Okay, now we're going to do activity 4 and publish the repository. And we're going to publish the repository by clicking this button right here.
Yes, make sure you keep this code private since we wouldn't want any other random users to see your code unless it's your collaborators.
Okay, and we publish the repository. So now we're on the GitHub website. This is my dashboard, and here you can see my repository, and it just initialized with the README file, and like we didn't add anything else, so this is how it is for now.
Next, we're going to go ahead and add your collaborators onto your repository. So in order to do so, you're going to go ahead and click on settings. Then underneath the access tab on your left hand side, there's a section called collaborators. You're going to go ahead and click that and hit add people. You're going to be searching people by their username, full name, or even email address, and it'll give you a drop down menu of what people have those names, emails, or username. And once done, go ahead and hit add to the repository. It's going to go ahead and send them an email saying that, hey, you've been added to collaborate on this repository. They're going to go ahead and accept the invitation to access both the code and also collaborate on this project.
So every time you're working on your code or you just updated something, you want to push it to your GitHub server, you can always, they call it pushing your changes, which is just saving your changes and sending it to the server. And once you send it, like we added like John as an example, but once you send it, your other team members will be able to see your changes so that they will also have like the full code to be able to work on their section as well.
So next, we can either open up the repository in VS Code or open it up through your file manager, but we're going to go ahead and do it through GitHub Desktop and open it up through VS Code. Since we had VS Code pre-installed, it went and found our text editor and put that as the default program. So now that we have clicked it, it shows now our repository, which had the Git attributes as well as the README file there as well.
In VS Code, you can also like type up your code, and then in the terminal you can put git add, git commit, and git push. But this is like entirely unnecessary. Since you know where you're saving your file, you can just directly do it in GitHub Desktop.
So now we're going to go ahead and create a file in the directory. We'll call it main.txt.
Okay, I'm going to create the new text file. And I'm going to save it. And it should be in the repository, but we'll see. Okay, we'll check on GitHub Desktop to see if we can see it. Yeah, we can see it, and it's in our repository. It's called main.txt.
And if we open up VS Code, it should also be there as well, as you can see on the screen. So, as we stated earlier, you no longer needed to do the commands such as git add, git-m message, or any of that, since GitHub Desktop takes care of everything for you. If you go ahead and open up GitHub Desktop, in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a small little section where you can fill out, the top one being a feature, and a small little description you can put in.
Yeah, I'm going to say this is our first txt file.
And we're going to go ahead and click commit to main. Once done, it's going to push it locally. But until you hit push origin, it's not going to push it to the online repository.
So as you can see, the file is not here because we didn't push it to the server yet. Now we're going to click push origin to push it to the GitHub server.
Once done, go ahead and refresh your page and it will pop up on your repository online. If you also want to see what has been done in terms of change, go ahead and hit the history tab and it will tell you all the previous commits done to the repository.
So everybody's going to be working on their own computer locally. Everybody should create their own branch and they should never mess with the main branch, and later you can always push it back to origin. So I'm going to create a new branch. And I'm just going to name it my name and then the branch. And okay, once you put the name of the branch, there's a button that says publish branch. You just click on it and your branch will be published.
So how important are branches, you may ask? So in GitHub, especially working in a project, each individual person has to be on their own branch. Simply because in case if you're working on one part of the code and someone else is working on a different part of the code, it will not jumble both of your guys' codes and end up having a mismatch of code that could potentially lead to work loss. So once you are done with your branch, you can go ahead and merge it back onto the main branch, and it will not affect anyone else's work. And once the other person also is done with their branch, they can merge it back into that main as well. So that way only your changes goes to the main branch and their changes goes to the main branch, and neither of your code will interfere with one another.
Okay, now we're going to do it. Open a text file, create a text file from our file explorer. So this is the root of the directory. I'm going to create a text file called hello.txt, and I'm just going to put this is from a branch inside of it. And I'm going to put this is from my branch. Okay, and then in GitHub Desktop, I'm going to commit it to my branch. Just put a message that you created in your local branch, and I'm going to just commit it just to my branch. Hit commit. And once you commit it, then you can push it to origin so that it'll send it to the GitHub server.
As you can see on the main branch, the text file does not exist, but if you hit Surya's branch, the text file that he created, hello.txt, only displays in there.
So we're going to merge the branch that I just created to our main repository by creating a pull request in GitHub Desktop by pressing on Preview Pull Request. Okay, we're creating a request to pull my branch into the main branch. Now we're going to press on Create Pull Request, and it'll take you to your GitHub on your browser. Okay, so here I put a title for the pull request, and then for the description, there's a description of the pull request. And this is so that if your teammates saw it on GitHub, they'll know exactly what you're pulling into the main branch. Okay, now press on Create Pull Request.
Currently, the merging process has said that there are no conflicts with the merge process, but if they were to occur, then it would give you a different set of options where it's going to ask you to select the correct code to be pushed into the main branch. The reason why we do this is because we have to make sure there are no emerging conflicts between someone else's work being initially transmitted and you're adding your changes into it as well too.
Okay, so now since there's no conflicts, we're just going to merge pull request. And now we're going to press on Confirm Merge. And it should say pull request successfully merged and closed.
Once successfully merged, if you want, you can go ahead and delete the old branch so that way it's less clutter and you or your teammates will not be confused as to why this still exists.
Okay, we're going to go to GitHub Desktop and change the current branch to main. And then we're going to press on Fetch Origin. And then we're going to press on Pull Origin. We're going to check if all the data from the branch came to the main branch. As you can see in your file explorer, hello.txt has been added on the GitHub website. Now be able to see hello.txt, which we merged to the main branch from Surya's branch.
Pull requests. So, before you're able to push any of your changes, there's going to always be a error message saying before we can push your changes, you have to pull the changes first. So that way there's no previous conflict errors of you working on a different part of the code. If you are not on your main computer, you can always log into your online repositories, in this case, GitHub, and you can go ahead and pull all the files from your repository onto that machine. And this is basically the whole picture of how GitHub really works. And always remember to commit after completing a task and module. If you're working on a different feature, make sure to create another branch of it. Don't work on it on the same branch. Also, this is a very important thing if you are using APIs. APIs are not public, they're given privately to individuals. And there are a lot of bad actors with bots going around to scavenge public APIs to use for their own benefit. So every API has a threshold that they give to users for free, and once that threshold is passed, then they start charging you money. So in order to keep from those bad actors, you put your API keys into your .gitignore file, so that way you can only access it, but it will never display in your repository. This is an extra layer of security on top of making your repository private. For more information, go ahead and click that link and it'll give you a better overview.
Okay, once you click on the updated link, it'll take you over here and it'll teach you everything you need to know about gitignore and which specific files you want Git to ignore and how to do it. This is probably like the only thing you might need to read up a bit, but it'll be very useful in the end.
And as we said earlier with the GitHub Student Developer Pack, do make sure to take full advantage of it, even if you're not using it for this class. Maybe down the line it might come in handy, so it never hurts to have it. Besides, it's free.
And in conclusion, you know all the basics of GitHub, which is essential for your software engineering project. But there may be a few other things that you might want to learn, and you can always watch a crash course or any other YouTube video to find out more.
And the one that we have linked does a pretty good job of explaining it. So if you do have the time or just want to learn about Git and GitHub just for fun, do check it out.
Okay, and that's the end. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the professor and we can always help you with your issues.